Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday, November 4th. Quite an interesting weather pattern setting up for the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. We spoke about this last week, that the strong frontal system that came through Thursday night into Friday morning of the end of last week really was a pattern-changing type of event from a warm October to a cold November in much of the northeastern part of the nation, and indeed the next couple of weeks look downright winter-like with multiple cold air blasts and even a couple of chances of snow for the first time this year in the Mid-Atlantic region, at least parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. and the Great Lakes. This is the average 850 millibar temperature anomaly map for the current 5-day period, and one thing that will be consistent over the next couple of weeks will be a polar jet stream basically pushing cold air masses from central Canada across the Great Lakes and into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast U.S. This pattern will continue over the next couple of weeks, and again we have multiple cold air shots. Again, this is the current 5-day period. Let's now jump ahead to days 6 to 10. And here we go. Look at this. This is a widespread severe cold for the early part of November. This is days 6 to 10, November 9th, all the way to November 14th, the early and middle part of the month of November. And this is the basically showing the arrival of a cold air blast by the early part of next week. We have one arriving at the end of this week, Thursday night, Friday time frame. Friday night will be very cold for this time of the year, maybe even some records being set, certainly across parts of the Northeast U.S. And then another big cold air outbreak arrives during the early part of next week. And both of these cold air outbreaks could have some snow to deal with, even into the Mid-Atlantic region, certainly across the Great Lakes and the Northeast U.S. Let's now go out to days 11 to 15. Well, here it is. Now we're looking at the middle part of the month. Days 11 to 15 run from the November 14th to November 19th. Again, this is the ensemble run of the GFS from 6Z last night. And the ensemble run tends to smooth things out as you move forward in time. So this is really quite an extreme looking map for days 11 to 15, with the cold air centered over the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic region. Again, this is the middle part of the month, so we have a lot of winter-like weather coming to the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast U.S. over the next couple of weeks. Well, let's stay with the ensemble run of the GFS, and now take a look at 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps going forward. A couple things I want to point out here. First of all, we're starting off the day quite chilly in the Mid-Atlantic region, but it'll actually turn fairly decent this afternoon with very light winds and plenty of sunshine, high temperatures jumping well up into the 50s. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar. Notice we have high pressure ridging to start off the week here from Alaska down across the western coast of Canada and a trough over the north central U.S. Let's just keep moving forward here into Tuesday. A little bit of a milder day in the Mid-Atlantic region for Tuesday, and then we get into the latter part of the week when things get really interesting here. Notice a trough by Friday morning sitting over the Northeast U.S. And look at this flow of air here from way up in Canada coming right down into the central U.S., and some of that cold air moves into the Mid-Atlantic region and Northeast U.S. during the day on Friday into Friday night. Could even be some record low temperatures Friday night in parts of the Northeast U.S., perhaps the coldest this early in the season. In our winter outlook, we pointed to the possibility of high pressure ridging across the western coast of Canada and the U.S. and Alaska, with a ridge popping up and then a trough down into the central part of the U.S., and that would allow cold air masses from way up in Canada to drop down into the central U.S. and spread out into the eastern U.S. And indeed, this is not necessarily a permanent pattern setting up, but this is an indication of what to expect over the next several months here. And here we go by the end of the weekend. Look at this flow of air again from way up in northern Canada, all the way down into the central U.S. And if we get this trough building into the northeast U.S., which I think we will, look at that, during the early part of next week, that is a very cold air outbreak for the early part of next week. And again, these cold air outbreaks may have some snow to deal with, at least in parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, in the Thursday night, early Friday time frame. And then again, snow could be a threat with this next cold air outbreak for the early part of next week. This is next Monday night, just a cold-looking map for much of the northern U.S., from the northern plains all the way to the Mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. Well, for the short term, we have high pressure now sitting right on top of the region. Some of the coldest temperatures yet this season over the last couple of hours. I saw Pottstown, Pennsylvania, for example, in the mid-20s. A widespread frost around the area as very nice radiational cooling conditions took effect overnight, with this high pressure moving right on top of the region. Clear skies, light winds, a cold air mass, a frosty morning. But with plenty of sunshine, temperatures will be boosted up well up into the 50s during the afternoon hours, mid to upper 50s in most locations. And Tuesday will be an even milder day with highs at 60 degrees. Then this frontal passage will bring in more chilly air for the middle part of the week, but the real cold shot arrives in Thursday night, Friday time frame. Well, let's now walk through the surface maps of the 6Z GFS model run. And again, after a very chilly start, it'll turn out to be quite a nice day in the Mid-Atlantic region. For the afternoon, high temperatures 55 to 60 degrees, light winds. That high pressure shifts off the coast. Tomorrow, Tuesday, ahead of the next frontal system, it looks like a bit of a milder day. Highs maybe 60, 62 degrees in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Maybe a shower, but for the most part, this next front is a weak front and will come through on the dry side. Chilly air for Wednesday and Thursday, but then things start to get really interesting by the latter part of the week. Strong high pressure by Thursday over the northern plains, anchoring a cold air mass and a lot of moisture setting up over the south central part of the U.S. And basically, the cold air will be dropping to the south and east. The moist air will be riding up to the northeast, and they may collide in the Mid-Atlantic region. Maybe a rain-changing to snow event Thursday night, early Friday, at least in the northern part of the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll have to monitor that over the next couple of days. And here we go. By Thursday night, rain breaking out in D.C., Philadelphia, but not far behind. That colder air already causing a changeover to snow upstate Pennsylvania, southern New York. And here we go, as the low pressure forms, moves off the east coast, could have enough cold air to cause maybe a changeover to snow, at least in upstate Pennsylvania, maybe northwestern Maryland, the higher elevations of the Panhandle region of West Virginia, late Thursday night going into early Friday. Again, this is something we'll have to monitor, and whether or not it changes over in the Mid-Atlantic region, the cold air is coming, that's for sure. Late Friday, a very cold day, and then Friday night, quite cold. Maybe some records will be set Friday night, either for the date or perhaps coldest temperatures this early in the season, at least in interior sections of the northeast U.S. And then we have cold air in place over the upcoming weekend, and early next week another interesting setup with kind of a repeat performance, with another cold shot coming along that polar jet stream from south central Canada across the Great Lakes into the northeast. At the same time, enough moisture may pull north and east at that boundary zone to perhaps cause some snow in the Mid-Atlantic region, at least parts of the Mid-Atlantic region. Again, we're talking a week from now, the early part of next week, and a second cold blast and perhaps a second snow threat by the early part of next week. So a very winter-like pattern setting up for the Midwest and Northeast U.S., the Mid-Atlantic region for the next couple of weeks, with multiple cold shots and even a couple different shots at snow for the first time this season. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.